The sleuths were in the middle of researching a case when a strange package arrived at our office. It was a wooden crate scented heavily of cinnamon and apples. As we opened it, we realized there were 2 piping hot apple pies inside. They weren't exactly the same apple pie, with minor visual differences, but there was a note attached. Dear sleuths, inside you'll find 2 seemingly identical apple pies, but one is superior to the other. Please try each pie and then call this number for your next instructions. And try we did. Both were really good with only minor variances. After trying a slice of each, we then called the number and listened to a pre-recorded message. What we discovered was that one of the pies had been poisoned, and we would have to eat the entire pie that we determined was more delicious, and by doing so we would ingest enough antitoxin to survive. However, if we picked the wrong pie, it would only accelerate the effects to put us into an early grave. We had no choice but to agree on the better pie and eat our way to survival. Welcome to Food Sleuths, Episode 5, Apples to Apples. Typically, we do a slight dive into the history of apple pie, but the problem is, we're short on time, and realistically, the pies in question were from Julian, California. Famous for apple pies, but honestly not the best apple pie in the US. So, let's talk about Julian. Established as a mining town in the late 1800s, Julian was named after Mike Julian, the appointed recorder of the newly formed mining district in 1870. However, unlike most mining towns that faded into ghost towns once resources were drained, Julian had an ace up its sleeve. Apples. The region's unique climate made it an ideal place for orchards, and as gold mining declined, apple growing took center stage. Julian's apples became so renowned that they won the blue ribbons and high honors at the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago, earning the town the title of the greatest apple belt in the world. But this episode isn't about Julian's history. This was contextual, to understand that there's a reason Julian's known for apples and apple pie, and why there's 5+ bakeries in Julian that focus on apple-based goods. On top of that, Julian relies on their apple products so much that in fact it imports apples from Washington and Central California to keep up with apple demand. This begs the question, at which point is the authenticity of a town known for its apples outweighed by the need to provide apple juice, apple pies, apple turnovers, apple cider to visitors to sustain a successful economy? Now we're getting ahead of ourselves. We're slowly dying from poison. We need to figure out which pie has the antidote. This brings us to our competitors, Mom's Pie Company and Julian Pie Company. Of the various bakeries in Julian, these are the 2 top contenders whose reputations precede themselves. YouTube videos, Reddit posts, and news articles tend to place these 2 pie companies head to head. Now, I grew up with fond memories of driving to Julian. My dad, a road trip enthusiast, brought our family up to Julian at least once a year in the fall. I appreciated it was less than an hour to shed the city and suburbs of San Diego for the mountain town of Julian. I always said, go west for 30 minutes and you're at the beach. Go south for an hour and you're in Mexico. 2 hours north will get you into snow in Big Bear. 1 hour east will get you into the mountains of Julian. I remember the air seemed cleaner, tinted with the sweetness of baked goods, maybe that farm smell from horses, and of course the rumbling sound of motorcycle groups gathering on the side of the road. Finally, once you parked and got into the main road, there was that visual of the main road peppered with mountain village shops and cafes. I would make it a habit to visit the old toy store, buy some ceramic oil diffuser light bulb crowns, grab a pint of cold pressed apple cider, and of course hit up Mom's apple pie for a warm slice of apple pie crumble with melted cheddar, or maybe a scoop of cinnamon ice cream. Either way, that was my childhood fall memories that stick with me to this day. In 1984, Anita Nichols, affectionately known as Mom, opened Mom's Pie House in Julian, California, inspired by her own mother's Saturday pie tradition. Starting in a tiny 10 by 20 foot space with one oven, the bakery quickly became a local favorite. Initially, Anita hid the baking process behind curtains, but after noticing customers' curiosity, she removed them, making pie watching part of the experience. As demand grew, Mom's Pie House expanded, adding cozy booths and a larger kitchen while staying a family-run operation. In time, Anita opened Mom's Wynola Garden, a second location just 4 miles east, offering the same homemade pies in a scenic, picnic-friendly setting. This expansion let Mom serve more visitors while preserving its small-town charm. Now, my nostalgia doesn't end with Mom's. Over the years, as I made my annual pilgrimage to Julian, I kept hearing pie accolades being thrown at Julian Pie Company. While I tried to stay loyal to Mom's, Julian Pie Company had a strategic advantage. It was right next to another legendary stop on the way to Julian, Dudley's Bakery in San Isabel. Famous for their their fresh baked breads and maple fruit bars, Dudley's was like the Whiskey Pete's in Buffalo Bill's Casino on the drive to Vegas, a warm-up stop before the main event, a chance to build the hype. But while you were there, you would be a fool not to grab a loaf of their famous bread along with a bag of their chewy fruit bars. And right there in the same shopping center just across the parking lot was Julian Pie Company, quietly, methodically, laser-focused on becoming the best apple pie bakery in town. In 1986, at 53, Liz Smothers founded Julian Pie Company, inspired by her early experience peeling apples at a local pie shop. Determined to create her own unique recipes, she opened a bakery focused on quality and cleanliness, quickly earning a loyal following. In 1989, Liz and her husband, Keith, expanded by planting 17,000 apple trees to ensure a steady supply for their pies. Over time, the business became a true family operation, with their children actively involved. Julian Pie Company later opened a second location in Santa Isabel and grew into a regional favorite, distributing its pies across San Diego County and beyond. Now, here's what we're not doing. We are not pitting Mom's Pie Company against Julian Pie Company. Both have dual locations, offering various baked goods that range from cider cookies to pies, of various fruits and fillings, and all things in between. They each offer their own unique toppings, and both serve drinks that range from hot coffee to hot apple cider. We're specifically comparing two pies: Mom's Apple Crumb versus Julian Pie Company's Dutch Apple. Now, why not the standard pie crust topping? A combination of nostalgia, and really these are the most commonly purchased pies at each location and should be their bar for how they approach all of their other baked goods. If you're comparing San Diego taco shops, you put carne asada burritos against each other. If you're comparing Thai, you pit pad Thai. Vietnamese, pho against pho. These are your baseline offerings and thusly should go head to head. Lastly, we're dying and we need to get to the analysis comparison quickly. The first pie we had looked very similar to what my memories recall as a Mom's Pie Company pie. A light crumble crust with dough-colored specks that looked like large pieces of beach sand mixed with golden brown bits that gave the pie a homemade look. The crust itself was light and crisp, and the filling looked decadent with small pieces of apple and cinnamon. By process of elimination, the second pie must have been Julian Pie Company. The presentation was a little more polished, with a more golden brown color to top the crumbles, which were both larger and varied in sizes. The crust was flaky and light, and the apple pie slices seemed a little larger, mixed in with the cinnamon and apple juices. From our perspective, Julian Pie edged out on presentation. Not by much, but our ideal pie would have a more golden color and variance in crumble sizes, and Julian Pie Company definitely was stronger in those categories. Now, for the important part, the taste. Mom's Pie Company was absolutely delicious. The crumble topping was a little grainier due to the smaller crumbles, and it seemed to be slightly sweeter, which may appeal to some people. The crust was light and crispy and had a good buttery flavor. The filling seemed slightly tangier, but more noticeably was how the texture of the apples were mushier. Compare this to Julian Apple Pie's slice. A variance in crumble size meant larger pieces were little bursts of toasted butter and flour mixed well with smaller pieces, which overall gave a better experience of the topping. The crust was flakier, and you wanted more of that flaky, buttery flavor with every bite. Finally, the filling wasn't as tart, and the apple pieces were more pronounced. It really felt like you were biting into freshly sliced and roasted apples. Both pies were delicious and truly worth their visitation. For our palates, however, it was a pretty easy decision. We decided upon the Julian Pie Company for the following reasons. Focus on the golden brown buttery crumble topping. Having variance in sizes meant a more unique and enjoyable topping, and not being as sweet helped bring the flavors out. A good crust can be further elevated with flaky layers. Julian Pie Company's layers edged out the well-made crust of Mom's, simply didn't have that element as pronounced. Number 3, filling. We enjoyed the larger chunks of apple, and once again, the flavor of the apples weren't as sour as Mom's, and therefore we didn't need as much sugar, which allowed the other flavors of apple and cinnamon to shine. That being said, we quickly scarfed down the rest of the Julian Pie Company pie. Had we made the right decision? Had we consumed the correct pie and enough of it to not perish from poison? Had we learned our lesson not to eat random pies delivered to us? Well, we didn't die. We did notice at the bottom of the package was a final note. For detectives, we were pretty bad at not looking at the entire package, but it didn't matter. The final note clarified everything. Congratulations, neither pie was poisoned, and neither pie was the best. Julian perpetuates the dream of their apple culture because it's their economic model to be a quaint and charming mountain town that needs to lean on their image to meet the demands of tourists from Southern California who come with certain expectations. The apples are from Washington. The orchards are barely open for a month during the fall season and provide smaller apples meant for picking with children. You come to Julian for the dream of Julian. You go to argue who makes the best pie, and they're all the best and none of them are. But you come home happy with a lighter wallet. And that's it. Do you like more tart pies? Do you like smaller crumbles? Do you hate flake in your crust? The best apple pie is somewhere in Julian, but there's a slice of pie that fits your palate in the slice of life that is Julian. Case closed. Now, do you have a better apple pie recommendation in San Diego? Let us know in the comments below, because if there's a dessert out here in the desert, you can believe the Food Sleuths won't desert you. As long as it's yummy.
You want more Food Sleuths? Subscribe, sign up for notifications, like the video, share it with other foodies, or help out the creator of this channel by joining the Mel's World Patreon. We'll see you on the next case.